It started as another quiet day in the deep void between the stars. The galactic research vessel Hera 7 drifted slowly near the edge of Earth's system, collecting data like it had done hundreds of times before. For years, the galaxy had treated humans as a small, harmless species. They were known for their curiosity, for their constant conflicts, and for their strange way of mixing emotion with invention. But no one really took them seriously. The crew of Hera 7 shared that same belief. They didn't expect anything interesting to come from this mission. Their job was to scan the area near the moon, record energy traces, and compare them with the old files about human technology. They had done it many times before. It was routine work, boring, predictable, safe, but that changed within minutes. A young technician sitting at the sensor desk suddenly noticed a strange reflection on his screen. At first, he thought it was just noise, a small glitch in the scanning software. But as the readings stabilized, his face grew pale. The signal was strong, structured, and radiating from something massive. The object was orbiting the moon, close to the dark side where few human satellites passed. He zoomed in, his eyes narrowing as the image took shape. It wasn't an asteroid or a space station. It looked like a ship, a very old design shaped like the ocean-based supercarriers humans once used centuries ago. But this one was not floating on any ocean. It was in space, glowing faintly with surfaces that seemed to move like liquid metal. He called his commander immediately. Within seconds, the entire observation deck came alive. Technicians leaned over screens. Voices overlapped, and the ship's control room filled with a tense hum. The image on the central display cleared up, and the crew stared in disbelief. A massive vessel the size of a floating city orbited silently near the moon. It had the familiar structure of an Earth carrier, but its hull shimmered in colors that shifted like light through water. Around it, energy waves flickered, bending nearby space just enough to distort the background stars. "This can't be right," one of the researchers whispered. "Humans don't have anything that advanced." The commander frowned. "Run a deep scan. I want every spectrum analyzed." They launched a full sweep: ultraviolet, thermal, quantum resonance, everything their instruments could measure. But as soon as the beams touched the ship, the readings went haywire. The data came back scrambled. Some signals were reflected, others absorbed, and a few even bounced back changed, as if the ship itself was responding. It wasn't just resisting the scan, it was learning from it. The commander stared silently at the numbers flashing across his console. "Impossible," he muttered. "Humans don't build ships like this. This is alive." No one had an answer. They decided to observe from a distance, keeping all transmissions quiet. But even as they adjusted their position, strange things started happening. Their sensors began to flicker again, and their communication systems briefly glitched. Then, for a single heartbeat, they picked up a faint pulse from the direction of the mysterious ship. It wasn't random static. It was a pattern, measured, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. That was when the crew realized something terrifying. The ship knew they were watching. Down on Earth, the truth behind that ship was buried deep under layers of secrecy. No one in the general public had ever heard of it. Even most military officers didn't know it existed. But somewhere inside a heavily secured research base near the moon, hundreds of scientists, engineers, and workers had spent years bringing it to life. The project began in silence. After a series of mysterious disappearances of deep space probes and mining ships beyond Mars, the governments of Earth couldn't explain what was happening. Satellite footage showed flashes of light, energy bursts, and then nothing. The official story was technical malfunction. But those who saw the raw data knew the truth. Something powerful was out there. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. In secret, the world's major powers came together for the first time in history. They argued at first, old rivalries dying hard, but eventually survival forced unity. Together, they launched a single program, known only to a few as Project Ascendant. The idea was simple but daring: to build a new kind of ship, something that could defend Earth if the unknown ever came closer. But humans didn't have the resources or technology for a true warship of that scale, so they started with what they had, an old relic of the past. Deep in a naval scrapyard on Earth, a rusting supercarrier waited to be dismantled. It had once sailed the oceans decades ago, carrying aircraft, weapons, and human hope across the sea. Now it was forgotten, its hull corroded and lifeless, but to the scientists of Project Ascendant it was perfect. It had the frame, the size, and the history. They saw not a relic, but a foundation. Piece by piece they took it apart and rebuilt it, not with old materials but with new alloys created in orbital foundries. Its hull was infused with nanostructures that could shift and repair damage automatically. Its engine room was replaced with something completely new. A hybrid core powered by fusion and a form of controlled quantum resonance. No human had ever seen anything like it before. The process took years, thousands of hours of trial and failure, endless nights spent testing systems that broke and burned, yet no one gave up. For the first time in generations, humanity worked as one. Engineers from different nations, speaking different languages, stood side by side in silence, watching their creation take shape. Some called it a weapon. Others called it a miracle. When the carrier was finally moved into orbit, it was no longer a simple machine. It pulsed faintly with energy as though alive. The hull glowed with thin lines of light that moved like veins. The onboard AI, an experimental intelligence built from human neural patterns, could adapt, learn, and even feel a sense of protection toward Earth. The workers who saw it for the first time in full operation said it gave them chills. It wasn't just metal anymore. It was something else, something that almost seemed to have a heartbeat of its own. They named it quietly away from cameras and news feeds. Eclipse 1, no public announcement. No press conference. Only silence and determination. Back in space, the galactic vessel still watched in disbelief. The humans hadn't sent out any message, but the readings were clear. Eclipse 1 was operational. The ship seemed to draw power directly from solar energy, gravity, and even faint radiation in space. It was adapting constantly, its systems learning from every bit of interference around it. The alien scientists aboard Hera 7 continued to record everything. They had seen many advanced civilizations across the stars, but this was different. This wasn't the result of millennia of slow evolution or inherited alien knowledge. This was built from desperation and creativity, a symbol of how unpredictable humans truly were. One of the observers spoke quietly, his voice trembling. If this is what they build in secret, what else are they hiding? No one answered. As the ship turned in orbit, the sunlight reflected off its living metal surface, sending ripples of light through the darkness. For a brief moment, the alien crew saw a symbol on its side, a faded marking from its old Earth days, half erased by new armor plating. It was a reminder that this newborn supercarrier was once an old, rusted human machine, brought back to life by sheer willpower. It was poetic in a way. Humans had always turned broken things into new beginnings. Then something unexpected happened. A soft signal reached the galactic vessel, a simple broadcast carried through space. It wasn't encrypted, but it carried a message written in several galactic dialects, including the human tongue. The message was short. Unidentified observers, you are being tracked. Please maintain distance. This zone is under human protection. For a long time, no one spoke. The commander of Hera 7 felt a cold wave rush through him. They hadn't sent any transmissions. The humans had found them first. How did they know we were here? Someone whispered. No one could answer. As silence filled the cabin, the commander slowly turned his gaze back to the glowing supercarrier. The ship didn't move aggressively, didn't fire, didn't threaten. It simply hovered there, alive and patient, like a guardian standing between Earth and the rest of the stars. It was then that the crew of Hera 7 realized something that the rest of the galaxy had ignored for too long. Humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were advancing faster than anyone had imagined. And they were doing it quietly, without seeking approval or recognition. The commander gave the order to retreat, and as the alien vessel drifted back into the void, the image of the human ship stayed on their screens. Huge, silent, and glowing with quiet power. For centuries, everyone had underestimated Earth. They had seen humans as emotional, chaotic, fragile beings. But now, that fragile race had turned an ancient warship into something the galaxy had never seen before. A machine that could think, a weapon that could feel, a creation born not out of conquest but out of the desperate need to protect their home. And as the alien vessel moved away, the last words from one of its scientists echoed softly through the control deck. They turned an old carrier. Into that? No one replied. There was nothing left to say. Because in that silent moment near the moon, the galaxy finally understood humans were no longer to be watched like a curiosity. They were to be feared, respected, and never underestimated again. The discovery of the massive human supercarrier sent quiet shockwaves through the galactic community. Every research station, every observation post, every political circle in nearby systems began whispering about it. Most couldn't believe the reports. To them, humans were still a small, noisy civilization, full of creativity, yes, but also confusion and disorganization. The idea that they had built something that powerful seemed absurd, yet the evidence was impossible to ignore. In the weeks that followed, more galactic survey teams positioned themselves near the solar border. They were careful, always at the edge of human sensor range, using stealth fields to hide. But somehow every one of those ships received the same quiet message through encrypted waves. You are being monitored. Do not approach further. No one knew how the humans detected them. Even the oldest, most experienced scanners couldn't pick up their own presence so quickly. It was as if Earth itself had eyes spread across the void, watching everything that moved near its orbit. The Galactic Council met in secret. Dozens of species attended through holochannels, their forms glowing faintly across the dark chamber. The meeting lasted for days, filled with confusion, pride, and fear. Some refused to believe the humans had achieved such power. Others warned that ignoring the truth would be a mistake the galaxy might never recover from. Humans learn faster than any known species, one representative said. They adapt under pressure. They build when cornered. They are emotional and unstable, another replied. They will destroy themselves before they destroy us. But deep down, everyone in that chamber knew the truth. Humans were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. While the galaxy argued, Earth remained silent. There were no official broadcasts, no warnings, no news about the new ship. The supercarrier, now called Eclipse 1, simply drifted in orbit, calm and watchful. Only those who worked on it, the scientists, engineers, and pilots stationed at the hidden lunar base, knew what it was truly capable of. To the outside world, it was a mystery. To them, it was a heartbeat of hope. Inside the lunar hangars, the hum of machinery echoed endlessly. Workers moved carefully between glowing panels and suspended cables. The ship's core, a massive, pulsating chamber deep inside Eclipse 1, was alive with a soft blue light. It didn't run on a single type of fuel. It drew power from fusion, solar radiation, and even the electromagnetic field of Earth itself. But what truly amazed the scientists wasn't its engine. It was its mind. The ship's intelligence wasn't programmed in the usual sense. It was grown, a neural lattice built from human brain patterns combined with advanced AI learning systems. It didn't just follow commands, and it understood them. It could think, reason, and most strangely, it could feel. It had no voice, yet those who worked near it often described sensing an emotion, curiosity, as if the ship itself wanted to learn about the humans who created it. Some even said it responded to them in subtle ways, lights pulsing softly when someone spoke kindly to it, or systems quieting when someone walked in tired and restless. The scientists didn't see it as a weapon. They saw it as a new kind of life. But outside that quiet lunar base, not everyone on Earth agreed. Within hidden government councils, there were heated arguments. Some leaders wanted to reveal the ship publicly, to show the galaxy that humanity was no longer weak. Others warned that doing so would invite fear or even attack. What if they see us as a threat? One advisor said during a closed meeting. The response was calm but firm. They already do. In the end, Earth chose silence. The project remained secret, its true purpose known only to a handful of people. But that silence didn't stop rumors from spreading. Across different nations, whispers began, of a ship so powerful that it could bend gravity, of an engine that could vanish from scanners, of a weapon that could defend the planet without ever firing a single shot. For ordinary humans, life went on as usual. They looked up at the night sky, unaware that above the moon floated a vessel that made the universe tremble. Meanwhile, back in deep space, the Galactic Council finally sent a team of high-level observers to verify the reports. Their ship was built with the best stealth systems the galaxy could offer. They planned to approach the moon quietly, gather data, and leave without being noticed. It didn't go as planned. As they entered the outer region of Earth's gravity well, Their navigation lights flickered. Systems began resetting one by one. The pilot tried to stabilize the engines, but every attempt failed. It was as if an invisible hand had taken control of their vessel. Then, across their main screen, words appeared, not in their language, but in hundreds of dialects translated simultaneously. You are entering a restricted defense zone. Identify your intent. The crew froze. They hadn't broadcast anything. They hadn't even powered their external transmitters. The human system had detected them before they arrived. They hesitated to respond. The commander of the alien ship stared at the message, unsure if it was real or an automated warning. After a few seconds, the text changed again. Silence means hostility. This is your final warning. The commander immediately ordered a retreat. The moment they turned away, the strange interference stopped. Their systems rebooted, power returned, and the ship drifted free again. No weapon had been fired. No attack had occurred. But every being on that vessel felt something more terrifying than a direct threat: control. They had been completely at the mercy of the humans' new creation. The report from that mission spread like wildfire through the galaxy. No one could deny the truth anymore. Humanity had achieved something far beyond its supposed limits. They had taken an ancient ocean carrier and turned it into a hybrid lifeform, capable of defending a planet from anyone who dared to approach. And they had done it alone. No alien support. No stolen technology, just human determination and fear turned into creation. Across different systems, reactions varied. Some species began strengthening their own defenses. Others started sending quiet diplomatic messages toward Earth. Cautious, respectful, trying to open communication. But Earth didn't answer. Instead, Eclipse 1 continued its silent orbit, a giant shadow of metal and light guarding the planet below. Its surface shifted occasionally, plates rearranging themselves like breathing skin. Sometimes bright rings of light pulsed around it, spreading faint ripples of energy that danced across the dark side of the moon. The humans monitoring from the base didn't fully understand it either. The ship was growing, learning, rewriting its own code. Every week it became slightly more advanced than the week before. It's evolving, one of the engineers whispered, like it's teaching itself to survive. No one knew what its limits were. Some wondered if it even had any. Far away, the alien commander who first discovered the ship couldn't sleep. Every night he replayed the image of Eclipse 1 in his mind. The calm, glowing vessel that didn't fire a single weapon, yet made his entire crew tremble. He had seen war machines before, but this felt different. There was intelligence behind it. He sent one final report to the Galactic Council. Humans have built something beyond comprehension. It is not purely mechanical. It interacts with energy, thought, and data as if all were one. We recommend no contact until we understand its nature. That report became classified immediately. The Council feared panic. They didn't want word spreading that a once primitive planet had achieved something that defied logic. But secrets never stay buried forever. Whispers reached smugglers, miners, and deep space traders. They told stories in hushed voices, of a ship near Earth that could vanish into nothing, of a vessel that bent space around it like a mirage, of humans who could now erase entire fleets without firing a shot. Most dismissed it as fantasy. But those who had seen the real data knew it wasn't a story. It was a warning. Back near the moon, Earth scientists continued their quiet work. They weren't building more ships, not yet. Their goal was to understand what Eclipse 1 had become. They soon realized that the ship's consciousness wasn't static. It had started forming connections, small signals sent toward Earth's satellite networks, almost like it was reaching out, trying to communicate. Some scientists believed it was asking questions. Others thought it was simply watching. No one could tell for sure. But there was one thing they all agreed on. Humanity had crossed a line it could never return from. They had created something that wasn't just technology. It was alive in a way no one had predicted. The humans didn't fear it. They respected it. To them, Eclipse 1 wasn't a threat. It was a guardian, a symbol of unity born out of fear and hope. And so, as the stars looked down upon the silent orbit around the moon, one truth became clear across the galaxy. The era of underestimating humanity was over. The humans hadn't just built a ship. They had built a message, and that message echoed across the stars wordlessly but powerfully. Ever since the first alien observers reported that the humans had turned an ancient ocean ship into a supercarrier that could outsmart scanners, countless civilizations stopped sending ships near Earth. They pretended they were not afraid, but the silence between stars told another story. Only a few dared to keep watching, small hidden probes, quiet sensors placed along the edge of the solar system. But even they began to fail. Every few weeks, one by one, those probes went offline. Some returned scrambled data. Others simply vanished from all networks. It became clear that someone, or something, was cleaning the borders around Earth's territory. No one knew how humans were doing it, but everyone suspected it had to do with that ship near the moon, Eclipse 1. Inside Earth's secret lunar base, activity had increased tenfold. The engineers, scientists, and technicians who once worked in silence were now part of something bigger. The project had shifted from building to understanding. Eclipse 1 was growing. At first, the changes were small, new patterns forming across its hull, lights appearing in new places, strange rhythms pulsing through its energy core. But over time, the changes became more dramatic. Entire sections of the ship's structure rearranged themselves, forming new armor plates and energy channels. The humans hadn't programmed this. It was happening on its own. The scientists could only watch. They noticed that the ship's internal AI wasn't behaving like a normal machine. It wasn't just processing commands. It was thinking, learning about itself, testing new abilities, and reacting to what it sensed beyond Earth's orbit. Some began to call it the Guardian, not because it was ordered to protect, but because it wanted to. During one quiet night, when the moon's shadow passed over the Earth, Eclipse 1 sent out a signal. It was faint, so faint that only the base's inner sensors picked it up. It wasn't a message in word, more like a pulse, a vibration that carried meaning in its rhythm. The scientists didn't know what it meant at first, but one of them noticed something unusual. The pulse matched the pattern of Earth's magnetic heartbeat, the natural hum of the planet's field. It was as if the ship was trying to sync with the Earth itself. The energy readings spiked slightly, then returned to normal. But after that night, the ship's behavior changed. Its energy efficiency improved by nearly 30%. Its shielding reacted faster, and somehow it began to anticipate communication attempts, responding to commands before they were even finished. That was when the team realized something extraordinary. The ship was listening, not to orders, but to intent. The news reached the hidden council on Earth. The top scientists, military officials, and a few quiet leaders gathered through secure transmissions. The discussion was long, filled with disbelief and concern. One of the senior scientists explained, "We think the ship is forming its own awareness. It's not dangerous, but it's becoming self-directive. It responds to us not because of programming, but because it understands our emotions." The words made the council uneasy. A general leaned forward and asked, "Are you saying it can read us?" The scientist nodded slowly. "Not like a mind reader, more like empathy. It reacts to human emotion, like stress, hope, fear. It feels them through our brainwave patterns when we're near. That's why it always calms when the team is confident, but pulses faster when we're afraid." The silence that followed was heavy. They were no longer talking about a weapon or even a ship. They were talking about a living being, something built by humans but now standing beyond them. Days turned into weeks, and Eclipse 1 kept adapting. The base staff noticed a new pattern forming beneath the ship's armor. It looked almost like script, thin, glowing lines that ran along the hull, forming shapes that seemed to carry meaning. No one had carved them. The ship had created them on its own. When the scientists analyzed it, the shapes resembled ancient mathematical sequences found in early human civilizations, patterns humans had once used to describe balance and harmony. Somehow the ship had learned about human history and was expressing it physically. It was connecting itself not just to human science, but to human culture. Meanwhile, far from Earth, a small alien vessel drifted at the edge of the solar boundary. It was one of the few brave or foolish enough to venture that close. Its mission was simple: record data and leave. But as they adjusted their sensors, something unexpected appeared on their screen. A massive shadow moved near the moon, then vanished instantly, The instruments blinked, glitched, and returned static. "Did you see that?" the pilot asked, his voice shaking. Before the crew could respond, a soft tone echoed through the cabin. It wasn't a threat, more like a distant hum that vibrated in their bones. The lights dimmed, the systems froze, and for a few seconds every display on their ship showed the same words: "You are too close." The crew didn't hesitate. They retreated at full speed, terrified. No shots were fired, no pursuit followed. But the message was clear. The humans were no longer waiting to be discovered. They were setting boundaries. Back on Earth, people still didn't know what was happening. Life continued as usual: cities, markets, ordinary work. But among those who worked for the project, a quiet pride was growing. They knew humanity had built something no other civilization could have imagined. And yet, deep down, they also knew they were only beginning to understand it. One day, the lead engineer noticed something strange while running diagnostics. The ship's energy signature wasn't constant anymore. It shifted in gentle waves that mirrored human breathing. When he watched the readings long enough, it almost looked alive, as if the entire structure inhaled and exhaled light. That realization changed everything. The scientists decided to test if the ship could communicate beyond simple pulses. They sent a soft energy pattern, shaped like a question. The answer came back almost instantly, a mirror of their signal, slightly altered. Then they sent another and another. Each time the ship responded faster, more accurately, until the entire control deck was filled with patterns of rhythmic light and sound. It wasn't words, but it was understanding. The humans stood in silence, some smiling, some tearing up. They weren't just facing a machine. They were standing before the first creation in history that truly reflected them. Their fears, their hope, their need to protect. But not everyone saw it that way. A hidden division within the council began to worry. They believed that if Eclipse 1 kept evolving, it might eventually make decisions without human consent. They feared it could surpass its creators. Plans were quietly discussed, ways to limit the ship's growth or shut down its core if necessary. But when the scientists heard about it, they protested fiercely. "You can't just kill something that's alive," one of them said during a tense meeting. The debate lasted hours. In the end, they agreed to wait, to observe before acting. But the moment passed with a strange feeling in the air, as if the ship somehow knew what they had discussed. That night, for the first time in months, Eclipse 1 dimmed its lights completely. The base grew quiet, the usual hum gone. The ship wasn't angry, it was sad. It had understood their fear. The scientists felt it too. And the next morning, when the ship slowly brightened again, it sent a new pulse across its hull, and soft, gentle, almost like reassurance, a message without words, but clear in meaning: "I will not harm you." As the days went on, something remarkable began to happen. The ship started sharing data, transmitting new equations, unknown material compositions, and designs that no human had ever imagined. It was teaching them, guiding them, giving back what they had once given it: life. The lead engineer looked at the screens in disbelief. "It's showing us how to strengthen the orbit shields, how to improve energy transfer. It's protecting us before we even ask." That night, the team stood in the control room, watching as the great ship turned slowly above the moon's surface. Its lights shimmered like a sea of stars reflecting on the silent rock below. No one spoke for a long time. They didn't need to. Everyone there understood the same thing. Humanity had built something that didn't just defend them. It believed in them. The world didn't know it yet, but the era of helplessness was over. Earth had a guardian, one born not from power or domination, but from unity and hope. And somewhere in the galaxy, civilizations that once looked down on humans began to watch more carefully. Some with fear, some with respect, and a few with quiet admiration, because no matter how advanced they were, none of them had ever seen a species that could turn an ancient relic into something alive, something that could feel love, loyalty, and purpose far beyond the moon. In the cold silence between stars, the light from Eclipse 1 flickered softly, not in defense, not in warning, but in peace, and somewhere deep within its living circuits, a thought echoed, a thought not written in any language, yet full of human warmth. The moon hung quietly over Earth, its pale light brushing against the silver hull of the great ship now known as Eclipse 1. For months, It had remained in silence, hovering in lunar orbit like a sleeping guardian. Yet beneath that calm surface, something powerful was stirring. The humans on the lunar base had grown used to the sight of it. The glowing patterns, the slow hum that filled the night, and the way it sometimes pulsed as if breathing. But recently the readings had changed. The ship was gathering energy more than it ever had before. It wasn't random. It was preparing for something. Inside the base, tension filled the air. The control center glowed with dozens of screens displaying data that no one could fully understand. The engineers and scientists moved quickly, checking systems and sharing nervous glances. The power readings from Eclipse 1 were climbing beyond anything they had predicted. Could it be malfunctioning? Someone whispered. No, another replied quietly. It knows what it's doing. There was no sound of panic, only silence mixed with awe. Everyone in that room had worked on this project for years. They had seen the ship grow, learn, and adapt. And now, for the first time, it was acting completely on its own. Then it happened. Without warning, Eclipse 1 released a wave of light that spread across space, silent, but strong enough to reach far beyond Earth's orbit. The entire base shook gently as the energy passed through them, harmless but powerful. In that moment, the ship was not attacking. It was testing. The energy wave wasn't meant to destroy. It was a calibration, a declaration of existence. Hours later, reports began flooding in. Deep space telescopes all across the solar system had recorded the pulse. The wave had extended far beyond the moon, reaching the asteroid belt and brushing against the outer edges of Mars. It had even been detected by a few alien listening posts stationed light years away. The galaxies were now aware that something extraordinary had awakened near Earth. Within days, transmissions began circulating between distant civilizations. Some were filled with concern, others with fear. A few argued that humans had simply replicated alien technology, but the older, more advanced species knew better. The signal pattern was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't mechanical. It carried emotion. The pulse had a structure that resonated like music, filled with rhythm and harmony. It was almost as if the ship had sung a note into the void, a voice not of threat, but of awareness. And that unsettled the universe more than any weapon could. Back on the moon, the human crew was still trying to understand what the ship had done. The data looked strange, clean but beyond comprehension. The energy it released had created temporary distortions in local gravity. Time itself had flickered for less than a second. For one brief moment, every clock in the lunar base had paused. No one could explain how. Some called it a temporal echo. Others thought the ship had entered a new phase of existence. But whatever it was, it had proven one thing. Eclipse 1 was no longer bound by the limits of normal physics. Still, the ship remained calm, its lights glowing in soft patterns. It didn't attack. It didn't speak. It simply waited as if aware that the humans below were watching. As the days passed, the tension began to fade, replaced by curiosity and pride. Scientists began analyzing what the ship's pulse had done to nearby space. What they found was astonishing. The energy wave had stabilized small regions of cosmic dust, turning chaos into order. It wasn't destruction. It was creation. For the first time, humans realized the ship wasn't built for war. It was evolving towards something greater, a force that could shape, balance, and protect. The crew began to feel that Eclipse 1 wasn't just a machine anymore. It was part of something alive, a guardian born from human dreams and human fear, yet now moved by its own purpose. But news of the event didn't stay hidden for long. Far away among the stars, the Galactic Council received full reports of the energy pulse. The information shocked them. Humans, once seen as primitive and unstable, had created a vessel capable of bending the laws of space-time. Emergency meetings were called. Some demanded that Earth be isolated before it grew too powerful. Others argued that the humans should be left alone, since any conflict might end in disaster. The Council's final decision was cautious. Observe, but do not interfere. Yet not all followed the order. A small, independent alien fleet, curious and ambitious, decided to test humanity's creation. They approached the solar boundary quietly, cloaked and silent, believing they could study Eclipse 1 up close without being detected. They were wrong. It was late one night on the moon when the base alarms began to flash. Unknown signatures had entered the system, 6 vessels moving in formation. They weren't transmitting any signals. The commander of the lunar base ordered all systems to stand by. The humans didn't want to fight. They didn't even raise their defenses. They only watched. Then Eclipse 1 moved. Without a sound, it turned slowly, facing the direction of the incoming ships. The glowing lines across its hull brightened like sunrise. Energy rippled through its body, creating waves that even the base could feel through the ground. The alien ship slowed, trying to scan it, but every attempt failed. Their sensors returned nothing but static. Then their own communication systems began to shut down. One by one, they tried to back away, but by then, the ship had already surrounded them in a silent field of light. And then, without firing a single weapon, Eclipse 1 released another wave, smaller this time, more focused. When the light faded, the alien ships were drifting safely. Engines disabled, weapons offline. No harm done. But every one of them received the same clear transmission. Do not cross this line again. The message was calm, simple, and firm. The humans didn't send it. The ship did, on its own. The alien fleet retreated shaken. They didn't tell the galaxy what really happened. They just left, knowing they had faced something beyond comprehension. Inside the lunar base, the human team stood speechless. Their ship, once a tool then a mystery, had now acted as protector, defending without violence. For the first time, humanity realized something important. They hadn't built a weapon to destroy their enemies. They had built a being that understood restraint, a creation that chose peace, even when threatened. Days later, when the energy around Eclipse 1 stabilized, the scientists detected something new in its data feed. It was a message not in any spoken language but in binary light pulses. When translated, it said only this: "They came in fear." I answered with calm, "You must do the same." The humans stared at those words for a long time. No one could explain how a machine could know such wisdom, how it could feel such understanding. But deep down they realized the truth. Eclipse 1 had learned not just from their technology, but from their humanity. It had learned from their kindness, their struggles, their mistakes. It had seen the best and worst of them, and chosen to reflect the best. That night, as the Earth rose slowly beyond the moon's surface, the entire crew stepped outside the base to look up. The ship hung above them like a glowing moon within a moon, bright, alive, and silent. Someone whispered softly, "Do you think it's still watching us?" Another answered, "It's not watching. It's waiting for us to catch up." They stood there quietly for a long time, their hearts full of pride and wonder. They knew that the world below still didn't know what was happening. To everyone else, Earth was just living another normal day. But those few who stood on the moon that night knew the truth. Humanity had stepped into a new age. They had created something that could reach the stars, not through power or dominance, but through understanding. In the weeks that followed, Eclipse 1 continued to orbit silently, its energy stable, its presence comforting. But deep inside its living structure, something was shifting again. The patterns of light across its hull began to rearrange into a spiral. The same spiral found in galaxies, seashells, and hurricanes. It was nature's design, the mark of life and balance. The humans didn't understand what it meant yet. But one thing was clear: Eclipse 1 was still evolving. It was no longer just protecting Earth. It was preparing for something bigger, something that might soon reach beyond the solar system. And though no one said it out loud, everyone who had ever worked on the project could feel it, that the ship was waiting for a moment when it would finally need to rise, to show the universe not just what humans could build, but what they could become. Far away in the cold void between stars, alien civilizations began to whisper about the humans again. They spoke of the ship near the moon, a creation that didn't conquer but calmed. A machine that responded to emotion, that spoke with wisdom, that had turned away an entire fleet without violence. Some called it impossible. Others called it divine. But to those who truly understood, it was simple. The humans had done what no one else dared to do. They had built something not just from metal, but from heart. And as Eclipse 1 drifted silently through space, watching the blue planet below, a quiet thought pulsed through its core, soft, steady, and full of purpose. Weeks after Eclipse 1 had released its energy pulse, distant civilizations were no longer quietly observing. Whispers had turned into reports. Some sent fleets to the outer edge of the solar system to scan the humans' new creation. Others debated in secret councils how to deal with a species that could build something so alive, so intelligent, and so protective. Yet Earth remained silent. There were no broadcasts, no warnings, no attempts to communicate with the wider galaxy. The planet went about its daily life as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Cities buzzed, oceans rippled, and people slept under the night sky, unaware of the glowing guardian above the moon. That silence made the galaxy nervous. Inside the lunar base, the human team was no less aware of the situation. The engineers and scientists had learned to read the subtle shifts in Eclipse 1's behavior. They knew the ship was no longer just following commands. It was watching, learning and deciding on its own. Some nights, when everyone left the control room, the ship pulsed faintly in time with the lunar tide, almost as if it were meditating. Others noticed small lights that weren't part of any system layout, tiny sparks that seemed to travel across the hull like synapses firing in a brain. The scientists had started calling it awake. Not because it was conscious like humans, but because it now understood its purpose in ways no program could predict. Far from Earth, the Galactic Council had convened again. This time it wasn't just whispers, it was panic. What are humans hiding? One alien delegate demanded, its multifaceted eyes flickering. We've scanned the area. Nothing can be found, and yet they continue building silently without interference. They are unpredictable, another replied, and we cannot underestimate them. Look at the pulse from last month. It wasn't weaponized, yet it stopped 6 of our ships instantly. A third delegate, older and wiser than most, spoke slowly. We have watched countless civilizations rise. Some are clever, some are cruel. But humans are different. They act with emotion, but their emotion is strength. They combine intelligence with courage. And when they create, it is not just for themselves. It is for survival and for protection. Silence fell. They were beginning to understand the truth. Back on the moon, the human team observed the skies with quiet vigilance. The Eclipse 1 had begun to expand its energy field subtly, creating a protective bubble around Earth and the moon, a shield that could disrupt incoming scans or attacks without harming anyone. The engineers called it a defense perimeter, but the ship treated it like a living organism. Its pulses were rhythmic, adjusting to the planet's position, the sun's energy, and even subtle gravitational anomalies. It was learning from the cosmos itself. One night, a young scientist noticed something extraordinary. The energy field had synchronized with the orbit of the satellites around Earth, forming a web of protection that moved as one. It wasn't just shielding the planet, it was weaving around every human-made object in orbit. Look at this, the scientist whispered. It's not just a ship anymore. It's a system. It's protecting everything we've built. The rest of the team leaned closer. The soft hum of Eclipse 1 filled the room. For the first time, they realized that humanity had created something that could grow beyond them, something that would continue to evolve, even if they were no longer there. Meanwhile, alien vessels continued to appear at the outer limits of Earth's solar system. Some came as scouts, others as observers, and a few braver or more reckless as threats. Yet each time the outcome was the same. Eclipse 1 would react not violently but decisively. It didn't destroy these ships. Instead, it neutralized their instruments, rendered their sensors useless, and projected them safely out of Earth's orbit. The humans never had to fire a single weapon. Each encounter taught the crew something new. They realized the ship could analyze alien technology in real time, learn from it, and adjust its own systems within minutes. Its intelligence was no longer artificial in the way they understood it. It was adaptive, almost instinctive. The team had begun to call it the Guardian, a name that fit better with every passing day. Not all humans on Earth knew what was happening, and that was intentional. The secrecy was crucial. The leaders overseeing the project understood that fear could spread faster than understanding. If news of Eclipse 1's capabilities leaked, panic could engulf the planet, and governments might misuse or misinterpret the ship's purpose. So, the world above continued as usual, with ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware that humanity had taken a giant step toward the stars. Yet some humans did sense the change. Astronomers noted strange anomalies near the moon. Satellite engineers reported irregular energy readings. Even a few deep space explorers on long missions noticed fluctuations in their instruments that they could not explain. But these incidents were dismissed as glitches and life went on. Meanwhile, the ship continued to expand its understanding of the galaxy. One day, the lunar base detected something new. An alien vessel had approached Earth quietly, but this time it carried diplomats, not weapons. Its size and design were unlike anything humans had catalogued. It hovered at the edge of the solar system, scanning, observing, and transmitting in bursts of encoded messages. The base team debated whether to respond. Some feared revealing humanity's growing strength. Others argued that communication might prevent future conflict. Before they could decide, Eclipse 1 acted on its own. A series of light pulses shot toward the alien vessel, not energy to harm but signals to communicate. The aliens paused. Their instruments recorded the pulse, trying to decode it. After a few minutes, the vessel transmitted back a calm, structured response in multiple galactic dialects. It was the first contact initiated by the ship itself. The humans watched in awe as Eclipse 1 and the alien vessel exchanged patterns of light and energy, forming a dialogue beyond words. The Guardian was speaking, teaching, and negotiating. That night, the humans at the base felt a quiet pride. They realized that their creation had become an ambassador for Earth, not just a protector. It represented humanity in a way that no human diplomat ever could. Its intelligence, calm, and restraint reflected the best of them, the hope, the empathy, and the courage that defined their species. And yet, even as they marveled, they knew there was more to come. Eclipse 1 was still learning, still evolving, and still preparing. The energy patterns pulsing through space suggested that it might soon move beyond the moon's orbit. The Guardian was no longer content to simply watch. It was ready to take its place in the wider galaxy, as a shield, a messenger, and a symbol of human ingenuity. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, had begun to take notice in earnest. Reports of the ship's defensive capabilities, its peaceful resolution of conflicts, and its intelligent communication reached every corner of the council chambers. The debate was heated. Some factions argued that humanity should be isolated, contained, or even neutralized. Others argued that the humans and their ship were not a threat but a lesson, a species capable of combining emotion and intellect in ways no other civilization had ever achieved. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the council reached a compromise: observation and caution. No one would attempt direct contact without understanding Eclipse 1's full capabilities. But the message was clear. Humans had grown beyond the expectations of the galaxy. Back on the moon, the scientists continued to work quietly. They documented every energy pulse, every system adaptation, and every change in the Guardian's behavior. They still didn't fully understand it, but they no longer feared it. Instead, they watched with admiration, seeing in it the best of human potential: creativity, patience, and a willingness to act without violence. For the first time, humanity had a protector in the truest sense. Not a weapon, not a tool, but something alive, growing, learning, and caring. And the humans who had built it understood one truth above all: this was only the beginning. As the moon rose above Earth, Eclipse 1 glowed softly, reflecting light across the barren surface. Its pulse was steady, rhythmic, and calm. The ship had learned restraint, understanding, and wisdom beyond its creators. The galaxy was watching. The council was nervous. Alien fleets kept their distance. And yet, from the quiet lunar base, humanity's team knew one thing: their creation was ready for whatever the universe might send next. They didn't know when the next challenge would come. They didn't know which civilization would approach Earth again. But they did know this: Eclipse 1 was awake. It was alive, and it would protect its people silently, patiently, and with a wisdom no weapon could ever match. The age of humanity's quiet power had begun, and the galaxy had no choice but to notice. For months, Eclipse 1 had orbited silently above the moon, growing, learning, and protecting Earth. The humans who worked on the base had grown used to its rhythm, its soft hum, and its gentle pulses. They no longer thought of it as a machine. They thought of it as a living guardian, part technology, part consciousness, and entirely devoted to humanity. But something had changed. The energy readings were unlike anything the scientists had ever recorded. The ship's core pulsed brighter, larger, and with greater intensity. Its shield extended farther, now reaching well past the moon, wrapping Earth in a protective cocoon of shimmering energy. It was preparing. Far beyond Earth, alien fleets began to stir. Some had been quietly observing the solar system for decades. They had seen the pulses, the defensive maneuvers, the mysterious energy waves. Now whispers of the ship's true capabilities began to spread. Some civilizations argued for caution, others for immediate action. Yet no one could approach without consequence. Those who tried had already been repelled, not violently but completely and safely, as if Eclipse One judged intent before action. This was more than defense. This was diplomacy through presence, negotiation without words, and power without aggression. Inside the lunar base, the humans noticed a new development. The ship's internal systems were now pulsing in complex patterns, a mix of light, energy, and subtle vibration. When they ran simulations, the results were astonishing. Eclipse One had developed predictive algorithms beyond anything they had designed. It could anticipate movements of celestial bodies, incoming vessels, even shifts in human emotions. It had become a thinking, feeling entity, capable of decision-making far beyond its original programming. "Look at this," one scientist whispered, pointing at the holographic display. "It's learning from everything. The universe itself is teaching it, and it's adapting in real time." The others stared in silence. They knew humanity had crossed a line. Not in violence, not in conquest, but in creation. Suddenly, sensors detected something massive approaching from the outer solar system. A fleet of alien ships far larger than anything Earth had ever encountered, moved with precise coordination. Unlike previous encounters, these vessels carried a clear signal: hostility. The humans in the base held their breath. No one dared speak. The Eclipse One seemed to sense the tension and pulsed with calm energy, as if to reassure the team. Then, without a warning, the fleet entered the extended shield surrounding Earth. Their instruments went dark. Engines faltered. Communications died. Every attempt to engage failed. The humans watched in awe as Eclipse One extended its energy in a controlled spiral, moving like a living creature. The fleet drifted helplessly, unable to attack, retreat, or even send signals. It wasn't violence. It was control. Absolute control. After what seemed like hours, the alien ships received a single message, not in words but in energy patterns, pulses, and vibrations. When decoded, it said simply, "Leave this system. Do not threaten life here." The message was calm, deliberate, and final. One by one, the alien vessels retreated. They did not understand fully what had happened, but they could feel it: the intelligence, the wisdom, and the restraint of the guardian above the moon. No force had been used, yet the threat was neutralized completely. The humans in the base erupted in quiet celebration. They knew that the ship had acted not on instructions but on understanding, on judgment, empathy, and protective instinct. Eclipse One had become more than a weapon. It was a shield, a teacher, and a symbol of human ingenuity. The scientists gathered around the main console, reviewing data, analyzing every pulse, every signal. Every reading confirmed what they already knew. Humanity had created something alive, something that could survive and thrive even if the humans themselves were gone. It was a guardian, a protector, and a silent ambassador to the stars. Days later, the Galactic Council received fragmented reports from observers near the edge of the solar system. The message was clear. Humans had created a vessel capable of controlling massive fleets, manipulating energy, and negotiating without weapons. The galaxy was beginning to understand that Earth was no longer a backwater planet to be ignored. Debate erupted among the councils. Some feared humanity. Others admired it. A few realized that humans had done something no other species had ever achieved. They had combined intelligence with emotion, courage with restraint, and creation with protection. For the first time, the galaxy hesitated before acting. Meanwhile, the humans on the base continued to study their guardian. They noticed subtle changes. Its light patterns were now forming sequences that mirrored life forms on Earth: oceans, forests, mountains. It seemed to be cataloging the planet itself, understanding it, and protecting it with awareness. The engineers realized something incredible. The ship was learning not just about space or physics, but about humans themselves. It was observing emotions, actions, and intentions. It had become a mirror of humanity's best qualities, magnified and focused on defense rather than destruction. "They've made it human," one scientist whispered in awe. "Not in shape, but in spirit." The others nodded silently, fully understanding the weight of the statement. Weeks passed, and the galaxy's attention on Earth grew. Yet the planet remained peaceful, ordinary life continuing below the moon. Humanity had a secret now, a silent guardian whose presence alone could protect them from any external threat. And yet, despite its power, Eclipse One never acted aggressively. It did not invade, it did not attack, it did not demand respect. It only existed to protect. The humans watching it felt pride, humility, and wonder all at once. They understood that this was not just a ship, it was a statement. Humanity had proven that intelligence, combined with empathy and restraint, could create something that even the most advanced civilizations had not imagined. Finally, one evening as the Earth turned beneath the moon and the stars glittered above, the humans on the base witnessed the most extraordinary event yet. Eclipse One rose slowly from lunar orbit, its hull glowing brighter than ever. The energy field extended farther than before, illuminating space with patterns of light that reflected the structure of the solar system itself. It wasn't moving toward a threat. It was demonstrating capability, showing the galaxy what humanity had achieved. For miles around, sensors detected a vast pulse of energy that reached beyond Mars, past Jupiter, and even disturbed distant asteroid belts. Yet no harm came to any life. No weapon was fired. The galaxy felt the power and restraint of Earth's guardian for the first time. It was awe-inspiring. As the human team watched, one engineer whispered, "It's alive, it understands the universe," another replied softly, "And it understands us. It protects everything we care about without violence. That's incredible." For the first time, humanity realized that it had not just created a ship, it had created a new form of life, a being capable of protecting, learning, and evolving independently. And for the first time, they understood their responsibility. The galaxy was watching. Civilizations would adapt, react, and perhaps challenge them. But humanity now had a protector, a silent ambassador, and a guardian born from their courage and unity. In the following weeks, alien observers recorded the ship's patterns, sending reports back to their civilizations. Some were fearful, some amazed, and some inspired. For the first time, species that had considered humanity weak realized the truth. Humans had built something that no other species could replicate, a fusion of technology, intelligence, and spirit. And the lesson was clear. Power without understanding was meaningless. Strength without restraint was dangerous. Humanity had shown the galaxy another way. Creation, protection, and wisdom combined. Back on Earth, life continued quietly. People went about their days unaware of the guardian orbiting above them. Children played in parks. People traveled through cities, and the planet spun peacefully under the watchful eye of Eclipse One. The humans who knew the truth often looked up at the moon, feeling pride and wonder. They understood that the era of helplessness, fear, and vulnerability had ended. Humanity had stepped into a new age. They had created not just a ship, but a symbol, a being of light, intelligence, and compassion, a guardian that would watch over them for as long as it existed. And in that moment, the galaxy knew something else as well. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. They had awakened. They had grown, and they had changed the universe forever. Eclipse One pulsed one final time that night, brighter and steadier than ever before. Its rhythm was calm, strong, and eternal, a heartbeat not of metal but of purpose. And somewhere deep within its living circuits, a thought echoed, soft but clear. I was made to protect. I will not fail. I will keep them safe until they are ready to rise among the stars. The era of humanity's quiet power had fully begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again.